Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says there is no military solution to the Afghan conflict. Addressing the media after a meeting with the chairman of the Afghan Council for Reconciliation, Abdullah in Islamabad, Qureshi said peace in Afghanistan will lead to regional prosperity. He said the Afghan peace chief negotiator acknowledges the positive role of Pakistan in the peace process. Earlier, Qureshi warned that all the stakeholders must be aware of peace spoilers. The UN says Israeli forces have demolished over 500 buildings in the occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip this year, displacing dozens of Palestinians. In a statement, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said 22 buildings were razed over the past 2 weeks alone. Azerbaijan says it has captured 2 districts previously held by Armenia during the ongoing fierce fighting over the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Azerbaijan's envoy to Pakistan, Ali Alizada, said several strategic heights at the Murov mountain have also been liberated from Armenia's illegal occupation. At least 23 people have reportedly been killed and several others wounded in the heaviest clashes between the 2 countries since 2016. The new coronavirus has claimed more than 998,000 lives, infecting over 33 million across the globe. India's coronavirus cases tally has topped 6 million after it reported over 82,000 new infections in the past 24 hours. The Indian Health Ministry said 1,039 COVID-19 patients died overnight, taking the count to over 95,000. In Pakistan, 9 more people have lost their lives to the virus since yesterday, bringing the death toll to 6,466. Those were the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Detail. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says there is no military solution to the Afghan conflict. Addressing the media after the meeting with the chairman of the Afghan Council for Reconciliation, Abdullah in Islamabad, Qureshi said peace in Afghanistan will lead to regional prosperity. Foreign Minister said the Afghan peace chief negotiator acknowledges the positive role of Pakistan in the Afghan peace process. He said Prime Minister Imran Khan's special advisor on trade, Abdurrazzaq Dawood, will visit Afghanistan to discuss bilateral ties. He told the visiting dignitary that Pakistan will continue playing a constructive role in the Afghan peace process. The visit of the Afghan delegation comes as the Afghan government and the Taliban are engaged in peace talks. The Taliban say Kabul's refusal to acknowledge the Doha Pact as the base document of the intra-Afghan talks is illegal and a breach of its commitments. In a statement, the Taliban said they will reserve the right to redefine their conditions for talks if Kabul seeks to withdraw from the Doha Accords. They said the Kabul administration has been following every step as described in the Doha Pact, and this sudden refusal of its recognition is a clear breach. The Taliban said the Afghan government's acts will annul the efforts that led to international consensus and support for the lasting peace in Afghanistan. Earlier, another meeting of the contact groups of the Taliban and Kabul ended inconclusively in Doha. Kabul's negotiator Nadir Nadri and Taliban spokesperson Dr. Naeem says such meetings will continue until a final agreement is reached. Azerbaijan says it has captured the Fuzuli and Jibrail districts previously held by Armenia during the ongoing fierce fighting between the 2 countries. Azerbaijan's ambassador to Pakistan, Ali Alizada, said several strategic heights at the Murov mountain have also been liberated from Armenia's illegal occupation. Azerbaijan declared a state of war in some of its cities yesterday, following heavy clashes with Armenian forces in the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. Both the sides have reported a total of 23 military and civilian casualties in the worst escalation since 2016. Azerbaijan President Ilham Aliyev says the blood of the martyrs will be avenged.
As a result of the enemy shelling, there are casualties among the civilian population and military personnel. May Allah rest the souls of our martyrs. Their blood will not remain on the ground. The Azerbaijani army is currently shelling, striking the enemy's military positions, and as a result of these attacks, most of the enemy's military equipment was destroyed. This is another manifestation of Armenian fascism.
Earlier, Armenia declared martial law after claiming to have destroyed several Azerbaijani helicopters and tanks. Moving on, international community has called for an end to the ongoing fighting between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The clashes between the two former Soviet republics are the latest flare-up of the long-running conflict over a breakaway region of Nagorno-Karabakh.
UN Secretary General has called on both sides to stop fighting and return to the negotiating table. US President Donald Trump says Washington will seek to end the violence between the two neighbors. Kremlin said Russia's President Vladimir Putin has expressed serious concern over the escalation of the situation. Pakistan and Turkey said they fully support Azerbaijan's right to self-defense and its position on Nagorno-Karabakh region. Meanwhile, Iran and the European Union have too called on the two sides to de-escalate and settle their differences through dialogue.
The UN says Israel has demolished more than 500 structures in the occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip this year. In a statement, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said the Israeli forces razed buildings on the pretext of lacking a building permit. According to the statement, a total of 134 structures were demolished in East Jerusalem alone. It said Israeli forces brought down 22 buildings over the past 2 weeks. This led to the displacement of the 50 Palestinians and caused harms to around 200 others. Israel has intensified its atrocities in Palestine as the US is pushing more Arab countries to establish diplomatic ties with Tel Aviv and after the UAE and Bahrain. Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan has discussed regional issues with the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. The kingdom's state media said both exchanged views on the strategic partnership between the two countries in a phone call. It said they also discussed joint coordination on dealing with regional and international developments. They reviewed the efforts of the G20 countries, of which the kingdom holds this year's presidency. Earlier, Pompeo held a phone call with his Egyptian counterpart, Sameh Shoukry, to discuss the Libyan crisis as well as issues of common interest. Cairo's state media quoted Shoukry as saying that Egypt is communicating with the Libyan parties to implement the ceasefire. Meanwhile, the Saudi foreign minister held a phone call with his Eritrean counterpart, Osman Saleh Mohammed. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has warned against attempts to stoke instability in the country. Sisi's warning follows a recent spate of scattered and small-scale anti-government protests. At a ceremony in Cairo, Sisi said some people are trying to take advantage of the tough measures his government has taken. He said they chose the hard conditions to cast doubts among Egyptians over the government's reforms. Dozens of people took part in rare protests in recent days in several villages in Egypt. On Saturday, a man was killed in clashes between protesters and police in a village south of Cairo. Jordan's King Abdullah has dissolved the country's parliament, paving the way for an election in November. Under constitutional rules, the government must resign within a week. The king issued a royal decree ordering the dissolution of the parliament effective on Sunday. The assembly comprises 130 lawmakers, mainly pro-government tribal officials, businessmen and ex-security officials. In July, Jordan's Electoral Commission set 10th of November as the date for parliamentary elections. This comes after the monarch called for countrywide polls to be held at the end of the parliament's 4-year term. France's President Emmanuel Macron says he will not give up on an initiative to save Lebanon from collapse. At a press conference, Macron said he was ashamed of Lebanon's leaders and will ramp up pressure on them to change course. The president said he is giving the rulers another 6 weeks to implement a French roadmap to bring the country back from chaos. As for now, he said there is no chance of imposing sanctions on Lebanon's leaders. Macron said he did not think that imposing sanctions will be useful at this stage. On Saturday, Lebanon's Prime Minister-designate Mustafa Adib resigned after failing to make a non-partisan cabinet. In Belarus, thousands of demonstrators took to the streets in Minsk for the 7th straight weekend, calling for President Alexander Lukashenko to resign. Security forces detained over 50 protesters and fired stun grenades and tear gas to disperse the crowds. A large number of women participated in the protest, with one group chanting in favor of opposition politician Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. Unrest in Belarus was triggered by last month's disputed presidential election, which believed to have been rigged in favor of Lukashenko. But the president denies any wrongdoing. Earlier, Belarus accused Western nations of attempting to sow chaos and anarchy in the country. Mali's former Foreign Minister Mokhtar Ouane has been named as the country's interim prime minister. The move is likely to trigger the lifting of sanctions from the West African bloc ECOWAS in the aftermath of the military coup last month. Besides being the foreign minister, Ouane has also served as Mali's ambassador to the UN from 1995 to 2002. His appointment comes 2 days after retired Colonel Barnado was sworn in as the country's president and coup leader Colonel Assimi Goïta as vice president. The men will be tasked with overseeing an 18-month transition back to civilian rule. 11 people have been shot dead in a bar in the central Mexican state of Guanajuato. The Attorney General's office said bodies of 7 men and 4 women were found in the Haral del Progreso city's bar. Authorities say another woman was found with gunshot injuries. Police said Guanajuato is ravaged by a turf war between the local Santa Rosa de Lima gang and the powerful Jalisco New Generation cartel. In July, gunmen killed 24 people at a drug rehabilitation center in Guanajuato, marking one of the worst mass slings. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has pledged to reduce record levels of violence. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The new coronavirus has claimed more than 998,000 lives, infecting over 33 million across the globe. India's cases tally has topped 6 million after it reported over 82,000 new infections in the past 24 hours. The Indian Health Ministry said 1,039 COVID-19 patients died overnight, taking the count to over 95,000. What in this report?
The graph of global COVID-19 cases is once again taking off, with a second wave gripping majority of the world. In the US, 21 states are reopening despite increased COVID-19 cases. Down in Latin America, the largest city in Brazil's Amazon region has closed bars and beaches to contain a fresh surge of cases. Criticism of President Jair Bolsonaro's repeated downplaying of the pandemic threat is now getting louder.
The government must take this seriously and speak the truth, to say what is happening and what is not, for 2 reasons. If it says there is no problem, then we'll receive no help. Secondly, if they say there is no problem, that encourages people to ignore our decrees.
More restrictions are expected in Europe as coronavirus spreads rapidly through the region, rattling markets. While the UK mulls a possibility of another nationwide lockdown, France, Germany and Italy are becoming increasingly wary of possible imported cases. The situation in East is also getting worrisome, with the fatal virus now increasingly threatening lives of children in Iran.
The coronavirus infection rates also show that the number of child infections is increasing, although, like I said, the symptoms in children are different and sometimes diagnosis becomes really difficult.
Mainland China has reported 21 new COVID-19 cases, saying all of them were imported. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said travel between New Zealand and some states of Australia is possible before the end of the year. This comes as the virus has been largely contained in Down Under.
In Pakistan, 9 people have died from COVID-19 overnight, taking the toll to 6,466. The Health Ministry said 566 people tested positive for the virus in the past 24 hours, raising the number of active cases to over 8,000. The ministry said with a 95% recovery rate, over 296,000 patients have recovered from the disease. Sindh is still the most hit province with more than 136,000 infections, while over 99,000 cases have been reported in Punjab so far. The National Command and Operations Centre says 735 hospitals are providing facilities to nearly 700 patients admitted across the country. US President Donald Trump has rejected a New York Times report claiming that the billionaire paid only $750 in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017.
After stirring up a controversy in the 2016 presidential poll, Donald Trump's tax returns have once again returned to haunt his bid for re-election in November. Addressing a press conference, Trump called the report as fake news, saying he paid his taxes. The US president also pledged to make his tax returns public.
You have people in the IRS, they treat me very, very badly, but they're under audit. And when they're not, I would be proud to show, but that's just fake news. The New York Times tried it, the same thing. They want to create a little bit of a story, they're doing anything they can. Not only that's the least of it. I mean, the stories that I read are so fake, they're so phony.
The New York Times claims it obtained data of Trump and his business empire covering over 2 decades. The report accuses Trump of paying 0 income taxes in 10 of the last 15 years, despite claiming income close to $435 million in 2018's financial disclosure. It said Trump was able to minimize his tax bill by reporting heavy losses across his business empire. In a statement, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said the latest revelations about Trump's taxes showed his disdain for America's working families. The report comes ahead of the first of 3 presidential debates on Tuesday and weeks before the November 3rd presidential election.
A US judge has blocked President Donald Trump's order to ban downloads of Chinese short video app TikTok. Nominated by President Trump last year, District Judge Carl Nichols issued a temporary injunction following TikTok's request. The judge, however, abstained from blocking other Commerce Department restrictions that are set to make TikTok unusable in the US. During hearing, a TikTok's lawyer said in the wake of ongoing negotiations, the ban was unprecedented and irrational. TikTok argued that the restrictions were politically motivated amid the US and China tensions. Meanwhile, another judge in California has blocked a similar order from taking effect on WeChat, a Chinese messaging app. A wind-driven wildfire has erupted in Northern California's Napa Valley, rapidly spreading across over 1,000 acres. Authorities said the fire has caused evacuation of hundreds of homes and hospitals in the surroundings. The fire broke out before dawn near Calistoga, spreading towards the adjacent towns of Deer Park and St. Helena. The California Fire Department said the firefighters are struggling to put out the blazing flames. The power to transmission lines in 16 counties across northern and central California has also been suspended. The authorities say they are investigating the cause of the fire. There are no immediate reports of casualties. Saudi Arabia says the G20 Leaders Summit will be held virtually on November the 21st and 22nd. In a statement, the G20 presidency said the summit will be chaired by Saudi Arabia's King Salman bin Abdulaziz. The statement said the G20 is leading the fight against the global pandemic, taking swift and unprecedented actions to protect lives. It said the meeting will lay foundations for a better future to save lives in the future. The G20 has contributed over $21 billion to support the production, distribution, and access to diagnostics, therapeutics, and vaccines. It has also injected $11 trillion to safeguard the global economy and launched a debt suspension initiative for least developed countries. The UK's Cabinet Office Minister Michael Gove is heading to Brussels to talk about Britain's future relationship with the European Union. Gove will meet European Commission Vice President Maroš Šefčovič to discuss implementation of the Brexit deal. The UK government said it will carry out treaty obligations in good faith. Formal negotiations will resume on September the 29th as the two sides attempt to agree a post-Brexit trade deal. The last round of talks ended after London introduced the Home Market Bill that allows the UK to bypass parts of the original Brexit deal. The EU's spokesperson has warned if the bill passes, it will constitute an extremely serious violation of the withdrawal agreement and international law. The Brexit transition period, in which the UK has kept to EU trading rules, ends on December the 31st. Qatar Airways says it has received a $1.95 billion stimulus package from the government after facing grinding halt to flights due to pandemic. In a statement, the airline said it got the package after annual losses exceeded 50% of the share capital. It said 2020 had been one of its most difficult years ever, with losses widening from previous year's $1.2 billion. The airline has already cut jobs and delayed new aircraft deliveries. The company has been facing a ban from the airspace of neighboring countries due to regional political dispute. European stocks have bounced back from their worst week since mid-June after strong economic data from China helped lift sentiment in the Asian session. The pan-European stock 600 jumped over 1.5%, with banks surging nearly 4% to lead gains. London's FTSE 100 has gained over 1%. In Italy, the FTSE MID has added over 1.5%. Frankfurt's DAX has climbed over 2%, while the CAC 40 in Paris has advanced close to 2%. All sectors and major bourses have entered positive territory. Earlier, Asian markets traded mixed, with Australian, Chinese stocks shedding, while Japanese, Hong Kong and South Korean bourses gained. In the English Premier League, Leicester City have thrashed Manchester City 5-2 in a stunning contest at Etihad Stadium. Jamie Vardy scored a hat-trick as the Foxes go top of the league. In contrast, Pep Guardiola suffered his worst home defeat as City boss, with his team now in the bottom half of the table. In another fixture, Patrick Bamford's late header earned Leeds United a hard-fought victory against Sheffield United. Meanwhile, Tottenham Hotspur continue to frustrate fans as they were held at home by Newcastle United. Another weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.